All right, so what we just went over, we went over the indirect fire process, talking about how the observer sees that target, sends out that call for fire to the FTC. The FTC receives that call for fire, converts that call for fire into data for your plotting boards, and puts it onto their computer record sheets. Once that data is generated for the gun line, from the plotting boards, or from your LHMBCs, we'll go over that in a minute too, then the FTC chief creates gun line commands for the gun line. He gives you guys your data via the gun line commands. You guys get up on the data, and then you fire your first round. Once you fire that first round, the observer then sees that impact, gives you that adjustment, and then we're restarting that process. The observer gives the adjustment, the FTC gets that data, gets up on that data, gives it to the gun line gets up on the data, next round out, and we're adjusting, we're continuing that process until we're on target, and then we're fired for effect. Once we're fired for effect, the observer sees that impact, then he's going to give you your BDA, or your REM statement. Make sense? Okay, I gave you guys kind of an image that you guys can use to generate that, similar to just like a circular process, right? Or doing a bullet pointed step-by-step. However, your brain needs to figure that out. Completely up to you. I leave that to you, all right? Yes, Mark. This is obviously wave tops. We're going to go into detail on each of these pieces. The observer piece being call for fire, the FTC piece being actually creating that data on your plotting boards, and then you guys kind of already know how to put in data on a gun and get the guns up. So I'm not going to go over that, but I will go over the gun line commands. So from FTC to the gun line, all right? And then we know how to drop rounds. Some of us have done it, all right? Some of us have done it more than others. So any questions on the indirect fire process as a whole so far? No, we're still good?
What exactly does FTC stand for?
Our FTC stands for a few things, but what we're going to call it is the Fire Direction Center. After the video, I'll give you another example of what it's called. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Anything else on the indirect fire process before we get into detail? Not really getting into detail too much, but gonna get into call for fire next. All right. Breaking it down, how many transmissions do we have in call for fire? Three. How many freaking parts in the call for fire? Six, right? What are our 6 elements?
Pause rep, fire cat.
Hayes.
Pause rep, fire cat, call for fire, ETO, corrections, rinse.
Yes, so essentially yes. I'm looking for call for fire specifically, but we'll get into those pieces as well, your pause rep and your fire caps. So, pause rep is what?
Position report.
Fire cap is what?
Fire capabilities.
No, I thought this wasn't the 6 elements of call for fires, the order of reports. Is that correct?
Sorry?
Yeah, this is the order of reports right now.
This is your order of reports. I like the term that you guys are using for that. I've never heard it like that, but yeah, this is all the reports that you're going to be utilizing in your indirect fire when it comes to the observer talking to the FTC. All right, and we'll get into detail on the FTC talking to the gun line after we are done with call for fire. For right now, this is observer talking to FTC. Okay, so pause rep. Who sends the pause rep?
That's going to be the observer.
Okay, so the FO sends the pause rep. Who sends the fire cap?
That's gonna be the mortar or the firing agency.
The firing agency, right? Okay, who sends a call for fire?
FO.
Observer.
The FO. Who sends adjustments?
That's gonna be the FO again.
The FO. And who sends REMs?
That's gonna be the FO.
We send REMs?
We don't. REMS is for us to figure out who we killed, adjust it, save the target.
Yeah, we can't see the target, so we can't send REMs, so it's gonna be the FO again.
Do we-
Alright?
Is there also
Is there a reason why
MTO?
we skipped MTO? Did I miss that?
It's part of the. I guess we can't add that in there, but it's technically a part of it.
Is that part of the adjust?
Necessarily, I mean, it is its own report. I kind of always put it in with call for fire, but you're technically right doctrinally, it is its own report, so I'll add that. Who sends MTO?
MTO is sent from the firing agency to the FO.
Yep, and then,
Adjustments.
okay, cool. Thank you for catching that. All right, so pause rep, FO, fire cap, us, call for fire from the FO, MTO from us, adjustment from FO, and REMS from FO. So, not all of these happen at once. What happens first?
The pause rep.
Your pause rep, right? Can somebody give me an example of what that sounds like?
So if you go through it, like FO's black 2, and they say brown 2 is black 2, stand by for pause rep, your Roger standing by, and you give them your position.
Okay, yes. And it's quite literally just that. The NATO pause rep has a little bit more information in it, but the essentials is all they need to do is they are giving you their grid, their location, right? To the best accuracy that they can. Okay. Why is it important that we know where they are?
So we don't kill the legs.
So we know we're not behind them, or like we're shooting over them.
Overhead fires is the main reason, as well as also making sure that none of our targets are within danger close of them. Make sense? Okay. What about fire cap? Why do we need a fire cap?
That way the FO knows what your capability, the firing agency's capabilities are.
And what direction we're facing.
What direction we're
Is
facing?
that for fire
Yes.
cap as well?
Fire cap, yeah.
We'll hit that in a second. Okay, yes. So fire capabilities report, literally just giving fire capabilities. Letting the FO and anybody else on the net know what we can do, where we're facing, and essentially where we're at as well. Right? Going into the fire cap, you guys kind of already talked about it a little bit. What is line alpha?
We're ready.
What is line alpha?
Fire
Fire
agency.
agency.
First letter of the firing agency.
Fire cap?
Fire cap, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. First letter of the firing agency. What about line Bravo?
MFP location.
The location, yes. MFP location. What about line Charlie?
The direction of fire.
The direction of fire expressed in what?
Mills grid.
Expressed in Mills grid. Okay, what about Delta?
Number of guns are ready to fire.
Number of guns ready to prosecute missions, yes. Number of guns ready to fire. What about line Echo?
Number of rounds
Rounds
by
by
Number of rounds by type. Remember that there are a number of rounds by type, but you're not going to, say for instance, you have a certain round allotment for an FPF or a certain round allotment for something else. You're not accounting for those rounds, right? When you're in line Echo, you're talking about the rounds that they can use for their call for fire. Say that we have an immediate suppression, or say we have a known target that we have set up, and on our target list worksheet, we already have allotted 10 rounds for that. We'll get into all what all that stuff means later, right? But you have 10 rounds allotted for this target at a different time. We're not going to use those 10 rounds because it's already set up. We do not want to expend the rounds that we have allotted for those targets. So we're not going to account for those 10 rounds in our line Echo. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. In addition, something to remember, Line echo is different between NATO and the Marine Corps, all right? Line echo for NATO is just remarks and restrictions. So if you ever work with other agencies, it's just gonna be remarks and restrictions for them, all right? The Marine Corps has number of rounds by type, okay? Why, you ask? Because nobody uses remarks and restrictions in line echo, ever. And it's more important to actually know what rounds we have. That's why we do it, because we're.
So, was there another line within the NATO one that tell you what type of rounds they have?
No, you would put it in remarks and restrictions still. So it's basically the same thing.
So it's just data.
Yeah. It's just labeled differently, and I can show you like one of the pubs that has that. I believe it's the Army Mortar pub that has it that has line echo as remarks and restrictions. And then it is our mortar pubs that have line echoes rounds by type. Okay. Okay, so we have our fire cap. We've sent that out, so that way they know now where we're oriented, how we are going to, where we're oriented, how many guns we have available, and all that jazz. Now, they see their target. They see their target. I'm gonna take a tactical pause for effect real quick, and I'm gonna break this up. All right. I'm breaking this up into 3 sections. Why do we think that is?
Because after you have the pause with the fire cap, as long as you're still communicating to black 2, you don't have to repeat your fire cap and pause with.
It's a very good point, and that is true. Not exactly the thing that I'm getting at, but you're correct, and I'll reinforce that real quick. Hey, brother. I'll reinforce that real quick. Your pause rep and your fire cap, you do not have to say again if you're working with that same agency the entire time, and if you're staying in the same position. All right, those are the main reasons why you would keep the same data, or keep the same like pause rep and fire cap data. But your call for fire, your MTO, that's going to be different depending on the target. What I'm getting at here with dividing it into thirds here, your pause rep and your fire cap, you don't need a target to send those. All you need to do is be set into your position and your FO be set into their position. So you really want to do this at the beginning of any emplacement, all right? So anytime that you've been placed and gotten into your MFP, there could be like no targets in the area for the next 2 days. You still have that pause rep and fire cap sent up, all right? And then this, your call for fire and the MTO, is after the FO has spotted the target, but before firing. And then your adjustments is after firing. So just break it up like that. When you in place, when the FO sees the target, before firing, and then after firing. Does that make sense?
I have a question. So, when you're out in the field service after a goalie, did you say that like when we went through, you give the fire cap like when we first got there to get it out? But for line delta, you say 0 guns ready to fire, and then when your guns are up, you give them out. If that's something that you recommend doing as well, or is it better to wait a couple extra minutes till the guns are up and then just send out 1 fire cap?
Right, that's a great point. Reason why we can send 0 ready, we still want for battle space geometries, and that's some big words here. Battle space geometries, we want people to know where we're at. So even if we don't have guns ready, we still want to show them that we're in this place, we're getting up on this direction, and we have all of these rounds allotted to us for these missions. We may not be ready to prosecute missions, but they can still, like say they see targets, they can build call for fire. They can build their call for fires and be ready, so that way when we call up to ready, or update to line delta to ready, then they could send that call for fire out. But it's still important for them to know where we're facing, where we're at, and that type of thing, even if we're not ready for it. Even if we're not ready for the call for fire. So I would recommend, if we're at 0 ready, you could do that.
There you go.
I could also recommend just be a fast section, so that way you can be 2 ready at all times.
Right.
Cool. All right. Now, we've kind of gone over call for, or fire cap. We're going to get into call for fire. So we talked about our 6 elements What are they? Shit, what's your name? What?
McCombs, sir.
McCombs? Okay, McCombs. What's friggin' 6 elements?
Pause there for fire cap.
Okay, for call for fire. Oh shit. Where's your rock?
I will let down my emergency.
I will be on that one.
Is it on your rock?
Just use your head for a second. Calm down. I won't let down my Marines is all it is.
It's somewhere on there. I hear you. Look. Alright.
Sergeant, why do you have I won't let down Marines in it? Does it have the exact?
Alright,
Yeah.
I'll explain. I'll explain why.
Oh, I wasn't checking on the observer part. I did it.
Oh, that's right there. Server ID, call sign, warning order, target location, fire description, method of engagement, method of fire control. Other than the one for this one.
I just remember it out of that.
Oh, I know.
Alright, so the reason why you could do whatever you want for remembering it, for memorizing it. The way that I remember it is it's pretty fucking hard. Pardon my language. It's pretty hard to forget I won't let down my Marines. Because that's just something that you should be thinking about all the time, right? I won't let down my Marines. Now I have that tied into call for fire, right? Your observer ID is your I. Warno is your won't. Your location is let. Your description is down. Your method of engagement, my. Your method of fire and control is Marines, right? The other way that you can do it is owl death. So your observer, your warning order, your location, description, engagement, and fire and control. Either way, it's not exactly how you say it. It is just however you want to cut that cake. It is for you to memorize in whatever way you want to. Me, I was taught I would my Marines. I learned owl death like a few years later. So that is the reason why I prioritize that one versus the opposite. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we have your 6 elements. If for your observer ID, what goes into that?
This is you, this is mercenary.
You, this is me, right? Just the you, this is me. What about your warning order?
Mission type and method of target location.
Mission type, method of target location, yes, and technically the size of element to fire for effect. But mission type and method of target location, yes. So your mission type is what?
Adjust fire, fire for effect, suppression, meat suppression, CAD,
There's 2 more.
not on the other 2 servers.
Okay. So there's a few, right? Adjust fire, fire for effect, suppression, immediate suppression, immediate smoke. Technically speaking, there is also, let's see here, quick fire plan and CM. So quick fire plan, don't worry about that. That's some officer stuff, right? You won't see that unless you have an officer that is a arty guy or a fire chief. So essentially, that's just a different type of suppression. They can just turn it into whatever they want. We'll get into timelines. I know you guys kind of learned a little bit about timelines recently. That would be an example for that would be a non-standard timeline. It would just be extremely crazy, like 20 minutes of suppression with 2 minute gaps here, there, and everywhere, and shot into the gap, shot out of the gap, and all that crap.
Sergeant, I have a question. Whenever you're talking about warning orders, you said mission type and method of target location.
Yes, so your method of target location being your grid polar.
Oh, understood.
Yeah, so if you're saying, if it's a grid, do you say adjust fire grid?
No.
No,
Standard.
why?
Standard.
Because it's standard, good. If it's polar, do you say adjust fire polar?
Yes.
Correct, because why?
Distance to direction.
Because it's not standard, right? What about shift?
Say shift from known target point.
Yes, you say shift from, and then whatever you're shifting from. Target number Alpha Bravo 1000 or known point 1, whatever it is, right? So,
So real fast, I just want to know which fire missions can Blackfoot, or can we prosecute this when we have to gun section? I know we can't technically do a CM.
you do see it.
We can. I
You're
heard
the
it's
two
good.
guns.
So I mean, like marking one and the other, crashing the airgun.
Absolutely.
So no, we can do all of them. There's no.
Not all of them. So the limitations that we have is quick smoke, range lat spread, and coordinated loop. We can't do those 3 missions just because of the capabilities of having 2 guns, as well as the capabilities of our vehicles and how much ammo we have. If we are ground mounted and we're carrying a certain allotment, we can prosecute. We can probably prosecute quick smoke. It would be essentially harder because we only have 2 guns. Your build time would be absolutely crazy. You would not be able to. You have to get at least 26 rounds of smoke out before for it to billow, and it's just quite a lot for 2 guns to handle. You're going to be covering about half the amount of space that you would. So essentially, it's going to be a little more useless. But per doctrine, per LAR, we can't do quick smoke. We can't do range flat spread. We can't do coordinated drill.
Pretty good.
Okay. But we do see that. Like we can hit one target and then hit another target at the same time. We do that. Okay. So we hit warning order. We understand warning order. Now, target location. Pretty simple. If it's a grid, what type of grid is it? 8-digit grid. What if it's a 10-digit grid? Stand by for 10-digit grid. Right? Why do we say that? Because it's not standard. Because if you start saying a 10-digit grid and you say like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, when you're going through that, it's going to really confuse the FBC whenever they get to it, because they're 8-digit is standard. They're going to write it like an 8-digit, and then when you got those extra numbers, then they got to fill for it. So stand by for 10. That is doctrinal what you're supposed to say. Stand by for 10-digit grid. Same thing for 6.
There's a little sidetrack, but you saying that with the FEC, is that really a part of the information?
The ROs are part of the FBC, so yeah.
Oh.
I'm just classifying them as well.
Just for a question about shift, what's the transmission sound like for that? Is it just fire shift from?
Yeah, so your first transmission, sounding like you, this is me, adjust fire, shift from target number Alpha Bravo 1000. Where's my rock? Oh, sorry. Good. Cool. All right, so target location. When you're going over polar, what is the requirements for a polar? Direction to distance, direction expressed in what?
Degrees.
Mils.
And expressed in what?
Mils.
Mils what? Magnetic?
Oh, shit.
Mills grid.
Mills grid. Direction expressed in Mills grid. If it's not expressed in Mills grid, you're going to please emphasize that it is not, so that way we can convert it. But anytime you're sending out a call for fire, you should just freaking convert it, so that way it's less work on the FDC, right? Okay, and then distance expressed in what? Meters, right? All right, and then your shift from, what is the target location? How are you going to say that?
Is it when you just go on part number 2000 shift 50? you take out your caloric for them, put your OT factor in, and you just tell them.
Where's your brain at?
I was thinking for the kind of shift from like a known point, would that just be a meter, or would they be out there with their binos and saying, cool, it's 4,000 meters away, so OT factor 4, and then just get on and say, right, like you're doing a correction?
Yes, so that last part that you mentioned, it is exactly like any regular adjustment or corrections. So, this is me, adjust fire shift from target number alpha Bravo 1000, then you get in the target location, you say target number alpha Bravo 1000, or since you already said it, you don't need to state it again, go directly into those corrections. Left, 50, drop, 200. You also have to make sure you give them that OT direction in there, okay? This is one of those that you would state that OT direction. So what are our two methods of target location that OT direction is stated? Polar and shift. In grid, it is not stated, so it'll have to be stated after the FTO, okay? So once again, just to reiterate, target location for grid, 8-digit grid standard, OT direction is not stated. For polar, direction, and Mills Mills grid, and Mills grid, and then distance in meters. And then shift is left, right, add, drop, up, down corrections with OT direction. Good? All right, target description. How do we do that?
The two chains out.
Snap.
Snap, right? What is snap?
Size, nomenclature, activity, protection.
Size, nomenclature, activity, and degree of protection, right? That sounds like size being 1 by, 2 by, 3 by, squad, or platoon, or section, what have you, right?
So, is this a 3? It's just like saying, what's a 2 by, 3 by? That's just if you see 3 squads, it's just 3 by.
Yes, 3 by squads.
There you go.
Yep.
And then check 2 by vehicles for, you should see like 2 BTRs.
Yes. So,
Size, nomenclature, activity, and degree of protection.
yes. So activity being in the tree line, digging in, patrolling, on hardball. You could get into as much detail as you want, moving from east to west along MSR Albany. You could do those things. And then degree of protection, when you're getting into, like, if they have vehicles, you could say, if they're in a machine gun bunker, you could say light armored vehicles, heavily armored vehicles, tanks, whatever. If we're shooting the tanks, we're fucked up. Sorry, we're incorrect. We probably shouldn't be doing that, right? And that's really it for degree of protection there. Does anybody have anything else for target description? Size, nomenclature, activity, and protection.
These notes Google Center.
Yes, you can. If you have those notes that I sent in the chat, feel free to pull them up. But I will tell you a little sneak peek about how your brain works. Your brain will only retain 30% of what you hear. It will retain 60% of what you write down, and it'll retain 90% of what you teach back. Does that make sense?
Yes,
sir.
So you're not going to get all of this fully until you hear it, write it down yourself, and then eventually teach it back to each other. Okay?
So then what was the nomenclature again for description, target description? Snap.
Oh, snap.
Yeah, what is nomenclature?
Size, nomenclature, activity, and degree. So nomenclature being ZSU 23 Tag 4, or whatever the vehicle is. If you know the vehicle, you can say the vehicle, or if it's a squad, it's a squad. If it's, you can go into like the uniform of the squad if you can see them. Like PLAM or PLAN, that type of thing. Basically, as much description on that target as you can. If you see an LAV rolling by, determine what type of LAV it is, it's an LAV 25, or so it could be like 1 by LAV 25, moving from east to west on freaking Georgina Street, and there's no protection, like a light armor, right? So that's basically your size, nomenclature, activity, and degree of protection.
And that'd be like dug in or in the open.
I mean, it's in the open, yeah, it's moving around.
I remember like in general, if you see like troops and all that,
Yep.
you could tell them.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool. So, next, method of engagement. Method of engagement, what is that?
Just dictates or the FO telling the fire agency how he wants the guns to be fired, or if he needs to special them.
Yes, so, relatively, yes, anything special. So your method of engagement is going to consist of, if you are firing danger close, you're going to state that it's danger close in your method of engagement. You're going to state the ammunition. If they want to, if the observers are for some reason are like mortar units, or they know a lot about what we use, they can state what ammo they want us to fire for this mission. In addition, they can also state the fuse that we'll use. They can also go over the volume of fire. So whether or not they want like 2 in the effect, or 2 in the adjust, or like 10 in the effect, they can also state those things. Traditionally, that's going to be the FTC that does that, but finally, for method of engagement, the last thing that you can add is the type of sheath that we will be utilizing. Sheath is spelled S-H-E-A-F, sheath. All right, we'll get into what those are probably after this. All right, but so your method of engagement and your method of fire control, something to remember, if you're an observer, these are just a request to the mortar section. These are just a request to the mortar section. The rest of it is enemy oriented. It's like, this is what the enemy is, this is where it's at. The rest of these is just like, hey, can you shoot it with this, and can you do this specific thing with it? This is just a request. If we don't want to do that, or if, say for instance, we know a better round to use, if they call it a loom on a technical, but it's like perfectly daylight, and we're like, why are they using a loom? We will change that in our MTO to HE, so that way we can actually have effects on it, right? And then your method of fire and control. Your method of fire and control goes essentially over when we are going to fire. So what is standard for method of fire and control?
When ready.
When ready. So what does when ready mean?
That should just guns are up and just launch around.
When the guns are up and the squad leader calls a gun up, you guys can send the round. That is when ready. What is at my command?
That's them waiting and saying they go on, and then wait for the target to get to the location, and then they fire.
So at my command can determine, it's determinant on who says it, right? So if, for instance, this is your call for fire, if the observer says at my command, then that means when the guns are up, we have to tell them that we are ready to fire, and then they will tell us fire. If I say, if the FTC chief says at my command during your gunline commands, that just means you guys are holding off until the FTC chief says fire.
So would that kind of be the same as when ready?
So when ready, you guys are never going to do it in the fleet, essentially, just because there's not, most rangeisms, there's not the trust and confidence there to actually get that done. You will see it in other units. Traditionally, I haven't seen that in LAR ever. It's always been at my command, at the command of the FTC chief. But when ready, quite literally, both guns are up, cool, send it. Like FTC chief doesn't have to say half of the fire.
Good.
So it's useful, it's fast, but
It's more
you're not going to see that.
responsibility on the actual gunner.
Actually, we were taught, like, the FTC chief says at the command, and they give the command to fire. They taught us to wait until our gun leader said to fire. Like, they'd say fire, and then after the gun, like the team leader that's on the gun would say fire, then we drop.
All right, I'm going to lay a bit of information on you right now. Sometimes things are different in different locations. There is such a thing as what is per the TM, there is such a thing as what is doctrinal, there is such a thing as what is traditional, and then there is such a thing as a fleetism. And then there's just people doing whatever the heck they want to do. I don't know what aspect your instructors had for that, but it is on the FTC chief to half load and fire you. There should not be any extra limitation for your squad leader to also half load and fire. That does not make any sense.
I was just seeing if that was some right thing.
Now, technically, what I would do if I were in a situation where I would call win ready, I would have win ready. I would call win ready to you guys as the FTC chief, and then your squad leaders, once they've checked your gun, then they can tell you to fire. So it's, the squad leader still has to verify your data, verify that everything's correct, right? So then they say whenever the gun is up, then they can tell you to fire, and then that's essentially also win ready.
All right.
Okay? Cool, does that answer your question?
Yes, sir.
Okay, in addition to when ready and at my command, you also have TOT, which is time on target. That's going to be in reference to other agencies attacking that same target that you're attacking. A good example for that would be SEAD with CAS also attacking the same target that you're attacking. So TOT, and then TTT is time to target. Difference is, the difference is for time on target is when the actual other agency is on that target, and then time to target is when they're en route to target, right? And then, as well as in fire and method of fire and control, geez. You also have your coordinated illume and your continuous illume. We'll go into those in more detail when we get to fire direction center procedures, all right? Essentially, one of them is keeping a location illuminated to the best of our ability for as long as we're told to. And then the other is having illumination on a target while we're also dropping HE on said target. That's like the bare bones of both of those, right? So continuous illume being that timeline of illume, and then coordinated illume being the illume popping, so that way the observers can see the HE impact on the target, okay? In method of fire control will also be the time that they will give you your timeline. So I know you guys talked about timelines a little bit. We'll get into that when we go over CIAD and that type of thing. But your standard, non-standard, and interrupted timelines. So say, for instance, we're doing a CIAD and you have a continuous timeline, they also need to give you a TOT as well. So that way you can base all of your times off of that TOT. Like I said, we'll get into the weeds on that. Any questions on your 6 elements of the call for fire and your 3 transmissions?
Oh yeah, so just real fast, I was kind of curious because I know what by piece by round at my command. What would kind of that be used? Because it kind of seems useless to me. For,
So
loading control.
yeah, there is also technically by piece, and then by piece by round, and then by piece by round at my command. It's not entirely necessary, but it is the most restrictive ways that we can fire. The only reason we would use that is if you're like in such a small maneuver box, like you're firing into such a small maneuver box that you need to have higher echelons like observing or something like that. Like the only time I've ever seen it was when a gunner was literally standing over the FTC and watching everything happen, like watching everything go down with each round. So we would call by piece by round at my command. So that way we would fire that one round, or wait for the impact, wait for the callback, and then we would then send the next one. Just so that way the gunner had like the solidarity of knowing, instead of us sending like 2 rounds out into nothingness. It is completely dependent, but you should never really see that, right? At my command is going to be the most restrictive that you'll see in regards to like the observer calling out my command or the fist calling out my command. We'll go over that in fire call planning. Okay, any other questions on call for fire? We'll get into adjustments and rounds after this.
Sorry, I've got a question. Are you gonna go into more in depth of time to target when you do timelines, or is that like a separate thing?
Yeah, I'll go over that on it later. Okay, cool. So, call for fire. Your observer has sent that out. Now, we need to build our MTO. Okay, remember this is still before firing. MTO always needs to be sent out before we're dropping rounds. Because lots of times you're going to be working under a FIST, a Fire Support Team, or an FSCC, all right, Fire Support Control Center. You're going to be working under one of those agencies, and they need something called deconfliction data. Deconfliction data is essentially giving them all the data to where they know that your rounds are staying outside of certain airspaces and staying outside of battle space geometries that would cause overhead fire, or our rounds being in some type of impact box that we're not supposed to be in, or our rounds going past into a freaking rotary wings like airbox, right? We give all this deconfliction data to them, so that way they can do it for us, so that way we don't have to assess all of that stuff ourselves. Because usually within your FIST, you're going to have a JFO, and within your FSCC, you're going to have a JTAC, so they can do all that deconfliction. We do not have to. All right. So your MTO. What is the consistency of your MTO?
Be the target number of guns, number of rounds in the adjust, number of rounds in the effect, and then OT fashion direction if they haven't already given it.
So, I mean, yes, as a response, they'll give you the OT direction, yeah. But your first letter of your firing agency, right? Number of guns on that mission. Number of number of rounds in the adjust, number of rounds in the effect, right? Changes to the call for fire. As we stated earlier, if they request some stupid thing like a loom on a tank, maybe cool, maybe sensor burnout, right? But regardless, if they call for some stupid thing, we can make that change to the call for fire. And that in the MTO is where you put that. And then in addition, for your deconfliction data, it's also part of the MTO. That is your gun target line in degrees magnetic, your max ord in feet MSL, and your time of flight. Reason why we're putting the max ord in feet MSL is for rotary wing, because rotary wing works in feet MSL, and then for rotary wing and fixed wing, they work on degrees magnetic for the direction for the gun target line, all right? And then time of flight is time of flight.
MSL is at median sea level?
Yes. Right.
EJL is above ground.
questions for MTO as of yet?
So you got number of guns, rounds, and the adjust or in effect target number
Yep.
in there?
Did I not say that? My apologies.
Um,
Yep, target number is also in there.
You said, first letter is fire agency instead of target number.
You're still saying the first letter of the firing agency. So
So
it's,
you still do?
yes. All right. Here we go. Okay, all right. Okay, so this first portion here is bare bones for your freaking MTO. There's no changes to the call for fire. We're not calling the rounds in the adjust because we're just calling one in the adjust, right? But we're saying first letter firing agency, Bravo, 2 guns or 2 ready, however you want to state it. Me personally, I don't say guns over the radio. That is something that most units do. They don't say guns over the radio, but I've been seeing that being like phased out recently. So you could call it 2 guns, whatever you need to do. 3 in the effect. If the fuse is still the same, you're not going to say the fuse. And then Alpha Bravo 2000. Then your deconfliction data, gun target line 120 degrees magnetic, max orb 1265 feet MSL. That's low as fuck. And then temp flight 26. That's your deconfliction data there. Any questions on that stuff? Do you have anything to add on?
Just for, there's no rounds in the adjust for that. They're generally not gonna get rounds in the adjust, like at all, because it depends on the observer, how many rounds it takes to actually do that adjustment, once it's like a specified mission. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, that's traditionally why we don't throw number of rounds in the adjust there, because it's not like, yeah, we're gonna do 1 round for each adjustment, but people tend to get confused to where they're just like, shit, I only have 1 round to adjust this thing. And it's completely dependent on the intelligence of observers and how they were trained in correlation with mortars, right? Any other questions on MTO and deconfliction data?
Wait, sorry, this is gonna sound maybe a little bit confusing, this question, but I thought for the pod rev, okay, when we get the pod rev, so we know that there's no like friendly groups like in our area, so that when we shoot, it will be overhead, we actually hit.
Okay.
Why are we going, like, you're saying we're not,
Yes, I get what you're saying. So let me know if I'm correct. With, like, why are we putting in deconfliction data if we already gave that information in the fire cap?
basically, yeah, yes.
Right. So whenever we got our call for fire, we are now adjusting onto a target. So we were oriented in one direction, but now we're orienting a little bit off of that direction, so the number's going to change. So I could have been, like, my referred deflection and my mounting azimuth could have been on haze. But when I received my call for fire, it now has my guns oriented on Giannis. So now my gun target line is different. So now I'm passing that new gun target line to make sure that I'm still good for overhead fires and all of that battle space geometry. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Cool. Any other questions on MTO? Okay, cool. Adjustments, we get how that works, right? Brief overview. Whenever that round impacts, they're going to call the target number for that mission. Now you're no longer saying like black 2, this is brown 1, or brown 1, this is black 2. Your communications is strictly that target number. After that MTO is passed, that's how it is. Okay? So they're gonna call target number Alpha Bravo 2000. Then they're gonna give that left, right, add, drop, up, down, corrections. Left, right, thinking about a three-dimensional plane here. We've got our cube. This is our cube. Our left, right corrections, our left and right here. Our add, drop corrections, our add, drop here. And up, down corrections, this is our up, down. Make sense? So we're changing altitude with our add drops, or correction, with our up, downs. And then we are just changing range with our add drops. So range to target, altitude of the target, and then left, right from the target. Make sense? That's all in reference to how the observer is looking at it, the OT direction. Okay? We should already know this, so just going over it just a little bit. All right. We've gotten our adjustments. We've sent all those rounds. We're now on target. They can call that fire for effect. They're still going to use that target number Alpha Bravo 2000, fire for effect, over. And then we send that fire for effect. We have good effects on target. Then they're going to give us our rounds. What is rounds? All right, Parker, first round.
First one, refinement.
Okay,
Shriner.
Shriner, second arm.
Record target.
Okay, Yanez, EM.
And division.
Okay, and Hayes, S.
Security?
No.
I don't remember, sorry.
Surveillance.
Surveillance.
All right, cool. So, all right. So your refinements, if you were to record the target, the refinements would just get that gun tube, that adjusting gun, directly on that target. For instance, whenever we do adjustments, what's our minimum left-right corrections?
25.
25, some people say 25, some people say 50. I'm good with 25, I like that one. And whenever we do that, we might not be exactly on target. We might just be slightly off target, but we're within ECR, so we're calling it good, right? That's oftentimes how we do our adjustments. But if we want to record said target, we want it to be as accurate as possible. So we're going to do that smaller correction in the refinements. So say it's only 15. So it's right 15, right 15. You give that in your refinements, right? So then it just adjusts that plot just a little bit more, so that way gun 2 will be exactly on target that next time that they fire it. But that's only if they record as target. Remember that it's only if they record as target. If you state record as target after end of mission, you're screwed. Because as soon as everybody hears end of mission, gun line hears end of mission, we call end of mission, and then boards are scuzzing. They are erasing that target. All right? So the order is extremely important. Refinements, record as target, end of mission, and then surveillance. Surveillance is your BDA. Remember something important. So what's BDA?
Is it the destruction?
Battle damage assessment. All right. We're learning so many acronyms that we can put on your guys' rocks today. All right. Your surveillance is your BDA, battle damage assessment. Important thing to remember for your BDA is you want to have accountability of that target. What that means is you said 3 by squads in the open in your target description, in the call for fire. I want to know what happened to all 3 squads. All right? I want to know 1 by squad destroyed, 2 by squads egressing. Right? I get that like 1 squad was completely schwacked, but I need to know, or the observer, correction, the FTC needs to know what happened to everybody. All right? So that way we can battle plan and we can build that out and have that understanding of how much we affected, so we can maybe increase the round allotment for the fire for effect next time. If we were to deal with three by squads and we only took out 1 squad, maybe we'll add more rounds to the fire for effect next time. So that way we can hopefully take out more of that enemy. So 3-by squads, and you could say 2-by squads neutralized, 1-by squad egressing, or something along those lines. Does that make sense?
Yes,
I
sir.
just want accountability of everything that you said in the target description. Okay. Any questions on adjustments or rems? Or all of your, what'd you call this? The cycle of reports?
Fire mission, I call that the fire mission reports.
Or the order of reports.
Order of reports, I like that. I've never heard of that, but that's nice. So your order of reports, do we have any questions on anything for the order of reports?
Can you repeat one more time what report as target means? And REMS? I'm sorry.
They just know the data, they like write it down, save it for a later mission. For record as target. Like,
What was your question?
They save the shit.
I had to answer Lieutenant Kamen.
So when it comes to REMS, like refinements and record as target, is it possible that it wouldn't be an end of mission, it would go back to more, I don't know how to say it, like another fire mission because of the refinements? Like, what does the refinements mean?
So the refinements is more for the FTC. So when we get into the plotting boards here later, I'll show you. But essentially, there's a specific plot or point in which that target is deemed like the actual location. So if you give us a refinement, we're going to refine that point to where it is more accurate. We do not need to send out another round to then verify that, as long as the observer gives us that correct correction, that correct adjustment. So if this is an entire like grid zone, or an 8-digit grid, if you will, then that 15-meter adjustment or refinement will actually change the overall grid of that target. Just by one, but it'll change it, you know? So that's the main point, is that way we're just that much more accurate next time. We don't have to send out another round to verify that, so long as they see with the observer, as long as the observers see that actual correction there. We'll also get into that when we talk about the different methods of excuse me. The different methods for setting in for a FPF, because there is a no rounds version of it where you're just doing the math, and it's kind of similar. I know we don't know what any of that means, so we'll hit that later. Does that get you close enough to an answer? Okay. All right. Any more questions on order of reports? No more questions on order of reports. All right. Cool. I'm gonna go ahead and give this 5 minutes. Time on deck is about to be 10:05. Back in here.
I get to go road for like 10, 15 minutes.
So we'll just take a walk.